Good morning. Happy Friday. It's the end of another week. Although, remember, it's harvest time, so it's not the end of our week. We're making calls late in the afternoon, through the weekend, seeing how we can help customers. You know, as we talked about yesterday, there's 4.3 million homeowners that can benefit from a refi today. It's harvest time. Let's get after it. It equates to $2 trillion of potential business. So let's get to it. But you know what I want to talk about today? I want to talk about, I was going to talk about two different reports, both from Zillow. One is their housing trends, so their housing trend reports 2024. One's for sellers, one's for buyers. I was going to try to get them both done today, but they're massive reports and they're filled with a ton of data. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to whet your appetite, go through the one on sellers today, and you can check it out. I put a link in the notes below, as well as I did a summary of this with a link on my LinkedIn. I actually covered both reports on my LinkedIn this morning. So if you want to jump ahead and see what buyers think, get data, go to my LinkedIn, click through both those links. But I'm going to just give you a taste of these reports. They are chocked with information. There's too much to possibly cover, but here's some information about sellers. What age are sellers? What's the typical age of sellers? Typical age of sellers, ages 40 to 49. 25% of all sellers are 40 to 49. And here's how it goes. 18 to 29, 13%. 30 to 39, 23%. 40 to 49, 25%. 50 to 59, 14%. 60 to 69, 13%. And plus 70, 12%. The interesting, so there you go. That's on the age of sellers. Let's go to the next thing. Let's go to income. The 25% of sellers have less than $50,000 in household income. Now, 29% of sellers earn household income of $50,000 to $100,000, and about 46% of home sellers earn $100,000 or more. Interesting, right? Going to education. 24% of sellers have a high school degree, 28% have some college, 28% have a 4-year degree, and 20 have postgraduate. Interesting, right? 19% of sellers have never been married, 60% of sellers are married or partnered, and 21% are divorced, separated, or widowed. So by far, married people sell the most homes. 60% of the market is married people. Now, the typical home sold has 3 bedroom, 2.5 baths, and ranges between 2,000 and 2,400 square feet. So that's the average house for sale that's sold. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bath, about 2,000 to 2,500 square feet. I'm talking about year built. 5% of the households were built in 1939 or earlier. 7% 1940 to 1959. 17% 1960 to 1979. 26% 1980 to 1999, and a whopping 36% of all homes have been, it's actually a whopping 46% of all homes have been built since 2000. So half the market is newer homes. Interesting, huh? Now, this is when we get into the more interesting stuff. This is, this is for sellers that sold their house and did not buy a house. So these are the reasons they did not buy a house. Really interesting. So sellers that did not buy a house, 42% already owned another house that they hadn't purchased recently. So they had owned it long term and they're just moving to their other house, whether it's a second home or investment property, whatever, maybe 42% by far the biggest one. Second reason why the seller didn't buy a house, 15% of them inherited a house. 10% of them just moved into their spouse's or partner's house. 17% took a long-term rental. 3% took a short-term rental. 5% moved in with friends. 2% or 5% moved in with family. 2% moved in with friends. Those are some good friends. Moved in with friends, and 1% moved into a hotel. So there you go. But 42% already own another home. And then now let's talk about, this is one of my favorite statistics. Reasons for the reasons why people moved. Right. 56% of all people that moved upgraded their house. So they went to a bigger, nicer house. 56%, by far the biggest percent. 12% just went sideways. They just didn't like their neighborhood, needed to move. And 32% downgraded. So 56% upgraded, 12% side graded, 32% downgraded. Really interesting. Now, on the upsizing trend, right, it was 56% got a more expensive home, 46% got more square feet, 35% got more bedrooms, 47% got more bathrooms, and 52% got a newer home, right? So there's almost 60% of home sellers that sold their home and bought another home did so because they wanted to upgrade. Interesting to know, especially if you're marketing to sellers. Most sellers, by the way, very interesting. Most sellers sell first and then buy. A matter of fact, 54% of sellers, these are the dual sellers, dual seller buyer, so the people that sold and bought, 54% said they sold first, 31% said they were able to time it at the same time, and 14% said that they sold later. So there you go. A really interesting thing. Now, this is another important thing. This would be good. This would be good, color in a home buyer seminar or a home seller seminar. What this is the life events that motivated homeowners to sell. So what triggered people to sell? So this is out of the total sellers, right? 51% sold because of a change in the household size. So they changed in how many people in the house. 30% sold because they got a new job or had to transfer to a new area for a job. 35% because they started working remotely and needed a different configuration. 32% retired. 32% got married. And this is not aggregate. These are the reasons. So you have multiple reasons why you sold. That's why you're getting above 100% for the mathematicians out there. 29% because they work remotely less often. See, that was interesting. 35% wanted to move because they're working remotely more often, and then 32% because they're working remotely less often. Job loss was 29%. But 78% of all sellers were influenced by a life event. So 3/4 of sellers are motivated to sell because of a life event. Isn't that interesting? And it's, change of family size, job transfer, working remotely, not working remotely, retired, got married, divorced, separated, lost their job. 3/4 of people. Very interesting if you ask me. So, you guys, I think I'm not even a third the way through this report. This report goes on and on and on. For example, the typical home seller considers selling their house for about 3 months before they actually sell it. That's the average, just so you know. 2/3 of sellers are considering renting their house before selling. So they're going, should I rent or should I sell? Interesting, right? You guys check this out. I put a link to it. As I said, half the sellers say they had at least one offer fall through. Exactly 50%. And the reason why, if you looked at the reasons why the offer fell through, here's what they are: 40% financing, 26% the buyer couldn't sell their home, 23% because of appraisal issues, 23% because of inspection report issues. So there you go. Those are reasons why properties fell out of escrows. Interesting. So that is Zillow's. This is a magnificent free report from Zillow. Once again, it is called their Housing Trends Report 2024. We just went through the seller's report. Tomorrow, I'm going to go through the buyer's report, which has not quite as much data, but nevertheless, very, very interesting data. But if you want to jump ahead, check it out. Go click through the links on the notes below, or go to my LinkedIn page, read my summary, click on those links. That's it. Great news for you to go out there and attack the market this weekend. Happy hunting. I hope you're out there harvesting. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Thanks.